Let's start with an experiment. What do you understand by the term digital literacy? What words or activities or skills come to mind? How might you pair the term digital literacy with your understanding of what our digital world contains and how it has evolved from that first simple hyperlinked web page in 1991? Have a think, scribble some ideas down. The timer starts now. I wonder what you thought of. Perhaps reading and writing came to mind. What we would call functional literacy skills, the ability to read and write, are absolutely the gateway to accessing the world of information online and offline. The ability to decode letters, words and sentences to gain meaning is a fundamental step. Perhaps technical know-how, that is how to use digital tools, also featured in your scribblings. If so, you are not alone. In many geographies, teacher training has focused on equipping educators with a basic understanding of digital tools so that they can later use them in a classroom setting. This understanding of literacy has come through in my conversations with educators across the world. When many of us think of digital literacy, we tend to hone in on the technical side of things. The focus on the technical has led many to categorise digital literacy as a skill, defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as practical knowledge in combination with ability. For many, the skill of digital literacy is our practical knowledge of how we use devices, laptops, mobiles, tablets, and practical knowledge of how we use software, that is, programs we can access on these devices. Of course, technical know-how, knowing how to install an app, how to log into applications, how to save files, knowing how to use technology is important. It is indeed now an essential life skill. But happily, digital literacy has evolved to take in much more than this. Paul Gilster's 1997 book Digital Literacy is generally thought to mark the start of this evolution. Problem is, the concept has taken on such a life of its own that, depending on which source we stumble across, we find different terms in different discussions, which nevertheless all seem to be focusing broadly on the same thing. Alongside digital literacy, we find digital competence, digital fluency, digital confidence, amongst others. This can be really confusing. We're faced with the question of where to go and what to think about to understand what digital literacy means beyond that technical level we first discussed. Hot off the press is the work of New Zealand academic Garry Falloon. His work acknowledges the huge number of influences on the idea of digital literacy and the growing labels and indeed practices associated with it. Media and information, computer and internet. These are four terms which are all placed next to literacy to describe a literacy that points to effective engagement with our digital world. Problem is, there's no agreed definition for these labels either. Nevertheless, this quality of effective provides us with an excellent next step in our concept discovery. It sets us on the path of worrying less about labels than what any given label, which processes and practices these labels include, and which we can develop in ourselves and others. Falloon unpicks the processes, the practices sitting behind different digital literacy frameworks with a focus on those developed for educators. For a long time, the focus has been on skills, mostly understood, as we explored above, as technical know-how, although information management and evaluation does also feature. There has also been a focus on pedagogy, that is how we teach, and curriculum, what we teach. These are two areas of great interest to Mark Prensky, who introduced the idea of the digital native. All three ideas continue to dominate and are, of course, very important. But see what additional focuses are gradually coming onto the radar. The personal, and dispositions or attitudes. By personal, we mean, to take Falloon's examples, things such as citizenship, so becoming upstanding members of society through our online activities, as well as ethical considerations when using digital resources. Falloon also suggests being safe, connecting with others, and importantly, thinking about our own health and well-being. By dispositions and attitudes, we mean, to again take Falloon's examples, things such as ongoing learning for jobs, and importantly, setting ourselves up as critical digital participants and evaluating the information and tools we find. Here is the model Falloon goes on to propose for what he calls digital competence. You can see how technical knowledge is just one small building block, with the real supporting pillars being the personal. This shows how digital literacy exponents are now encouraging us to think of digital literacy as encompassing a whole range of practices. To look at this in a different way, here is a word cloud taking in recent definitions of digital literacy. Yes, ICT features, this references those technical skills, but we can also see the prominence of the word information. We can see the prominence of the word knowledge. We can see the emergence of these terms critically, analyse, evaluate, as well as a number of terms relating to the individual coming through. In other words, with the help of Falloon and this visual, we can see how the concept of digital literacy has evolved to bring focus on how we can each develop a mindset so that we can actively participate rather than passively consume and be consumed and overwhelmed by our digital world. It has evolved to become a holistic concept that bridges the gap between technology and society and places the human at the centre of technology and our digital world, with responsibilities starting with the individual and emanating outwards. It is the key skill which we should understand more broadly as practical knowledge combined with values that allows us to become netizens, as early termed by Michael and Rhonda Halban, that is, mindful global users of the internet. There is an important thread to pick up on here. Digital literacy has a performative aspect to it. It touches on how we act and react within the context of our intertwined online and offline lives intertwined with those near and far through the power of technology. This evokes the work on critical literacy and multiliteracies by Alan Luke and others. So in its latest avatar or form, digital literacy identifies empowerment as central to the performative aspect it embodies. Being digitally literate means feeling confident to critically navigate the digital world with its masses of information and myriad tools, and feeling ready to create independently within it for the common good. This characteristic is what tends to be highlighted by those who favour the term digital fluency. As we have seen in the definition visual, and as we have been reminded by researchers, digital literacy as empowered performance relies on cognitive rather than technical applications of technology. This might sound familiar. Bloom's taxonomy is important here. That move through that basic understanding, akin here to our technical knowledge, towards those higher order thinking skills, analyse, evaluate and create. In other words, thinking critically through analysing and evaluating what we are faced with online can move us onto acts of creation. This is the journey we need to take to develop and, importantly, maintain that performative digital literacy. It is a continuous cycle of learning, thinking and reflecting, and practicing. It takes sustained effort, hence why I am avoiding the label fluency, which hints at ease. This ongoing cycle, which never fails to stretch and challenge us, is what we should understand by digital literacy. So let's keep it simple and stick to this label, digital literacy, whilst being aware that when many reflect on digital literacy and focus on the technical know-how and perhaps functional literacy, in actual fact, they're really only taking into account the tip of the iceberg.